God, I wish that were me. This is what I wanted. This is what I was after from a series like this. Just straight into the action with a big fight scene. Oh my god, Strength is so cool. I think she might be my favorite character so far. Just phenomenal. Her voice delivery, her animation, her design, everything is just awesome. And I am really enjoying what her voice actress is bringing to the table here. Like, I feel they really needed somebody who could give a punchy delivery, and that's what they got. I think the casting here was absolutely perfect. So the initial fight scene, I think, was pretty perfect. I actually really liked this episode, and it's probably because Smily wasn't in it, but I do still have a few things with the episode structure, but I'll get into that. The fight between Strength and Empress was done really, really well. Like, it was clear Empress had no idea who Strength was hesitant to fight back. I think we could have had a little bit more on her trying to protect the humans, because they just kind of got thrown to the side and forgotten about for that scene. So I think maybe if at one point she just glanced over and saw them hiding behind the black trike or something like that, just to remind us that they're there. But other than that, the choreography was fantastic. The explosion gifs are still bad. I think because I noticed them in episode 1, I'm just really aware of the fact that they're there, and it bothers me because the shot of Strength losing control of all her shots was incredible. I thought that was awesome. We got to see her not necessarily fail at something, but have her plan thwarted. But then all of the just stock smoke animations ruined it for me. It's visually messy. And that's something that I was really afraid of with a mixed 2D, 3D animation, was just too much happening on screen at once. And I understand, like, she fired 10 shots, it's gonna be a lot, but I think those smoke animations were too much for that scene. They muddled it too much. We couldn't really get a grip on exactly what was going on. That's a minor gripe with those hacking gifs that I don't think they were the right choice here. And I get that sometimes budget is an issue. They probably put all their money into like the 3D models or the fight choreography, then got to the explosions and went, ah, shit, we can't afford that. What's Shutterstock selling their stuff for these days? I would really like this show to stop showing ass shots when girls get on bikes. Like, I get it's like, ooh, sexy, but it's just kind of unnecessary, you know? If they want hot women, then do it right, you know? Show us them actually getting battle damaged is something that I think I would like. So, sort of getting back on topic here, that first fight was very good, and it showed that the writers aren't afraid to hurt Empress. I had a minor concern that she would have layers and layers of plot armor, because it's common for characters that are very monotone, that don't really have an outward personality, to have plot armor, because, oh, they're the conduit for the audience, or, oh, they're gonna be the audience favorite, so we can't have them getting hurt. No, hurt them, please. That is what I am here for. This is a gritty, edgy anime. I want to see Empress absolutely destroyed. I want to see her come back from the brink of death and succeed. Give her something to struggle against, and that is what Strength was this episode. It was a physical challenge because Empress didn't want to fight her and clearly couldn't remember who she was, so she's dealing with the physical side of being attacked and the emotional side of someone who appears human to be attacking her out of nowhere and clearly angry at her, because at the end of episode 1 we have Strength yell at Empress and then continue to yell at her throughout the fight and try to kill her. She tries to blow her up. That's great. That is phenomenal and exactly what I was here for. Strength is purely fueled by her rage. She's clearly angry at Empress for leaving, we know that, and she couldn't take it out on the mechs or the enemy in this situation. I imagine she tried, but it wasn't the same. So clearly Empress leaving has and it goes without saying, impacted Strength emotionally. She has a massive issue with that, and it could have been, maybe the situation was, Strength was overwhelmed, and Empress was about to run in to save her, and then something happened, and Empress was gone. So Strength thinks that she's been abandoned. That would be cool. I imagine that there is that sense of abandonment here, of Strength thinking, Empress is meant to be our leader, she was meant to save us, and then she left. She left us to deal with everything. That's good. That is emotional fuel, and I would love to learn more about why Strength is so angry, what happened. I'm not always keen on flashback kind of stuff, but I think here it would be kind of necessary, because if they don't do a flashback to show us exactly what happened, they're going to tell us what happened. They're going to have Strength and Empress sitting on the edge of a cliff looking out on the ruins with Strength going, "It was 10 years ago, and you abandoned me. We were fighting a bunch of mechs at this location, and I put out a distress call and you never came." Like, no, show us. Show us Strength struggling and sending out the distress call and being confused as to why Empress never arrived. Give us the story from Strength's perspective. So the structure of this episode was very Fight scene, exposition. Fight scene, exposition. It was fight something, go to a place, learn about the world. Fight something, go to a place, learn about the world. And I would have liked a little bit more flavor during those exposition scenes. So I'm going to go through them one by one and talk about how I would enhance them. Because no one wants to sit through exposition where it's just panning shots of the settlement and of what people are doing. It's just boring. And like, when Colonel David and Empress were riding through the settlement, it was like, okay, he's just talking, they're just riding along. No, I want some visual flavor here. So the first exposition happens when they enter the mountain camp that Norito and Mia live at. And I think the first thing that should have happened when they entered the settlement is David starts his exposition and then Mia jumps out of the car and runs up to a tap or a clean water source and just starts shoveling water into her mouth. I know that they're meant to wear the masks on the outside, but it was a minor establishment in episode 1 that she was thirsty, and she has gone all this time without drinking. She would be dehydrated, and in a show like this, I think that kind of realism is necessary. So she runs over and just starts drinking and drinking, and somebody else walks over and says, "You're gonna have to pay for that." Mia checks her pockets and she's like, "Oh shit, I don't have any batteries." So in that moment, Norito jumps out and hands this person a couple of batteries. That's how we learn about the currency system. Now, I think batteries here are actually pretty cool. It's a neat touch because batteries actually have value. It's better than Fallout's bottle caps because batteries give you power, and power in this situation would be incredibly sparse. I think that's cool. That's good world building. People having sort of a monopoly on a tap of water or a specific vein of ore or a kind of food or something that only one person knows how to do or happen to put their house near or happen to find first, and then monetizes it. So whenever somebody uses that tap or tries to mine ore or wants that kind of food, they have to pay. Now, this leads into one of the issues that I have with this whole setup is it seems weird that the remaining humans would be this aggressive towards one another. It's like they've turned into territorial dogs, where if you step foot in someone else's zone, they're gonna rip your leg off. And I get, it's a gritty, edgy story, but I think you need balance, and that balance should have come in the form of compassion. You can still have your monopoly on the tap water, but maybe just sit next to it, you know? Keep an eye on it. Someone comes along and you're like, "Hey, would you like a drink?" They're like, "Yes, absolutely." They hand you a cup, and then when you're done drinking, they're like, "Yeah, that'll be 3 batteries, thank you. I take AAAs." You know, make it tense, but not hostile. Because the the chain link fence on the bar is hostile. That seems unnecessary. And obviously in this setting, it's like, oh no, he's protecting himself. Like, people are feral, they'll go nuts for some beer. Like, okay, I get that, but it doesn't flavor the world as much as I think the writers may think. It's just adding more tension for the sake of having more tension. Like, no, we need narrative balance here. Back to the exposition. Norito pays for the water, and Empress is like, oh, why did he pay for that? And then David can explain, oh, we use batteries as currency, everything sucks, yada yada. Give us a reason that he's telling us all this. Don't just launch into it. Like, give us motivation, you know? The exposition, David's exposition here went for so long, and then we got more later on. Like, it just kept going. When we get inside the bar and we meet Monica, she seems deranged. I like that in a woman. So I really like Monica's voice. I think, again, her performance here is S tier. Phenomenal. I did not like the sound effects they put when she had her tongue out. That was gross, but I do like Monica as a character. Her motivations are strong. She's fun to watch. Her design could be better. Like, she could have better clothes, but I've spoken about that already, so let's just put that in a box. I didn't like that Monica was talking to David as if he was Empress's owner. Like, Empress was doing fun shit in the background that I will talk about, but I think in that situation, Empress needed more agency, because unlike Strength and Deadmaster, unless you knew that she was the Hemiteos? The unit that I've forgotten the name of once again, unless you knew what they looked like, you probably wouldn't immediately assume that Empress was one of those units. You'd be like, oh, that's a weird outfit, but alright, I can dig it. Her eyes are really blue and she hasn't done her hair properly, but you know, whatever. You would assume that maybe she's just a weird human, not necessarily the savior of the whole earth. The fact that Monica knows what she looks like tells me she's done her research or she has experience. And either one of those works. They suit her character because we know that she is a hacker, that she has technical aptitude, if you will. But we also know that she's a scout. We see her looking for opportunities. So it's very likely that she has seen Empress before, whether that be in person or in old news articles or blogs or something online. I don't know if they still have access to the internet, but she spoke about connections, so possibly maybe she's seen something. But if she knew about Empress, surely she would know that she's her own person. I think that Empress needed more agency in that situation, but it did let us get a little bit of humor, and it's my kind of humor, which I'm very happy about, was Empress toying with the menu, just pressing buttons. Then it cuts and yeah, no, she actually got all that food. And look, I'm not going to go into the gritty details of like, oh, how did she pay for it? No, it was a funny scene. Leave it, just let me have this, please. That's all I ask. It was very good, very cute. Just a very human moment from Empress that I think mirrored the exposition about her being once a human, not so much anymore, but the fact that she is built from a human. That contrast was really, really good. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but we had David and Monica talking about Empress and being like, oh, you know, I want to perform maintenance on her body. It's like, oh, well, she was human, so you're gonna find guts in there. Having that contrasted with a very human moment from Empress, oh, just beautiful. And if it wasn't intentional and they just wanted to do a funny thing, good job. Because that funny thing actually worked very nicely in this situation. So at this point, the exposition is still going. So I think maybe for this scene where they're sitting in the bar, we have that exposition come in the form of Monica and David arguing. Not just David talking about everything, like we see Monica listening to them from across the table. David maybe gets 2 sentences in and then she runs over and is like, can I do maintenance on your girl? And David's like, what? Excuse me. So they get into a bit of an argument and we learn more about the origin of Empress. So rather than them arguing over like doing maintenance, it's no, she's built on a human body. Like there's not really any maintenance to do. Oh, the bike? Yeah, you could totally do maintenance on that. Whatever. So that sort of establishes their relationship as a bit tense. And then we have Norito jump up and say, "Hoi, listen to me, we need to go to the hospital." I think that maybe throughout that scene, Norito should have been trying to interject a little bit more. Not vocally, but I would like if he kept raising his hand, or maybe at one point did stand up and then sat back down. So something visually other than him just sitting there and waiting for an opportunity. Just give us a little bit more visual flavor, because we had it with Empress, right, when she was pressing buttons on the menu. So just give us that little bit more with Norito. I really like that Empress's instinct to help and protect humans is consistent. I super appreciate that, because it's the kind of thing that could very easily be done away with, but they've kept it so far. I know we're only 2 episodes in, but they've kept it, and that's phenomenal, because Norito asks for help, and Empress says, "Yes, I will help you." So I think that's really good, and it could be, maybe, because it mentions that she has computer DNA, right? Maybe her programming is that she can't say no. When a human asks for help, Empress's programming will not let her reject them, which is an interesting take, right? Because when Norito asks them to do something very dangerous, Empress is like, "Yeah, no worries, let's go. Who's with me?" And that leads into some really interesting narrative stuff, because if, say, David realizes that, he could ask her, "Hey Empress, I need your help blowing up the elevator." And Empress goes, "Okay, where is it?" So it could be very easily manipulated, but I think the kind of 5-man band that we've got going on here, I don't think that will happen. And I'd like to talk about the 5-man band a little bit. For those unfamiliar, the 5-man band is a common trope used in team-based storytelling. So oftentimes stories will consist of a protagonist, a deuteragonist, and a tritotagonist. So basically your primary, secondary, and tertiary characters. They make up the main story conduits, if you will, the characters that the story focuses on. And sometimes that gets expanded to 5. In the 5-man band, you have the leader, their foil, the lancer, the heart, the smart guy, and the tough guy, or the big guy. And the group that was established in this episode really screamed 5-man band to me. So I'd like to talk about that a little more, even though I don't think Norito and Mia will be joining us on every expedition. That just makes this a 3-man band, which still works. So obviously in this situation, Empress is our leader, because the only quality that you need to be a leader is leadership, or the fact that people follow you. She was assigned leader of the Hemiteos units, and that works as well. If you're assigned leader, you're the leader. There's really not much to this position, so you can be any kind of person, and as long as people follow you, you're the leader. Next is the Lancer, who is the foil to the leader, somebody who contrasts them and often opposes their ideas. Obviously here, the person that opposes Empress's ideas is David, but I'm not going to assign him the Lancer because he is very clearly our tough guy. So I think in this situation, the Lancer is actually Norito, because he is emotional enough to take on that role, and he interjects with Empress's kind of plans. Her only plan at the moment is to get to the lighthouse, but Norito is like, actually, we need a lift home, and then we'd like to go to the hospital, and then we'll probably need to be saved when we leave the hospital. He's getting in the way of Empress's plans, and even though she is not bothered by that, fits the Lancer archetype. Next is the heart, and this is Mia. So the heart is often just the source of emotions, if you will. Not always emotional support, but that does come into it as well. Mia's only role is to bring emotion to the table. So oftentimes in a long-term story, the heart would be the person that everyone goes to spill their guts out and be like, all these terrible things happened and I need to talk about it with someone and here's my whole backstory. And the heart says, oh, they're there. I'm here for you now. We're your family now. You know, they're the source of that kind of emotional building. And Mia doesn't get that opportunity because she is not in the story long enough. She may be later, but at the moment, she's just the most emotional person on the team, and also girl. Unfortunately, this role does often get boiled down to the girl of the team, or at least the only one that isn't a tomboy. Look at Voltron. Voltron is actually a prime example of the 5-man band. But moving on, we have the tough guy, or the big guy, is obviously David. Their only role is being big and being able to hit things very well. So we know that David is good with guns, he can drive a car, he's very violent, as he very plainly told us in a quite disgusting line, but that's all you need. Just the tank, essentially. And lastly, we have the smart guy, who is Monica. So Monica has obviously that computer knowledge of technology and mechanics, and she proved that this episode where she was like, oh, I'm going to do maintenance on that human girl. Well, not human, but you get the idea. And she had a whole toolkit that seemed to be in pristine condition. It's obvious from that she takes care of her equipment. So the only traits that you need to be the smart guy are some kind of technical aptitude. So whether you're really good at magic or good at mechanics or just book smart, some kind of intelligence that outranks everybody else on the team. And that's our 5-man band, and it's weird that that kind of happened. I'm not sure if it was completely intentional by the writers, but it certainly happened, and I can see this changing throughout the story. Like, obviously our main trio is going to be Empress, David, and Monica, but I can absolutely see Dead and Strength becoming a part of the team. The issue with them is that they may not fit, because Strength would be the big guy, and Dead, I'm assuming, would be the Lancer. But then we have 2 big guys and no heart. That's a fun conflict. I kind of want to see what would happen there. That would be fun, right? Because if a team isn't balanced, and you can look at any MMORPG or TTRPG for this, if a team isn't balanced, you're really going to struggle. And if those 5 get together and become a team, they've got no heart. There's no emotional support for them, so they're probably going to argue and gripe at each other, and it's gonna be amazing. The kind of emotional conflict that would arise from an unbalanced team, oh, I can see this series doing it, and I hope they do. I think it would be phenomenal. Because the other thing there is that if you have 2 people in the same role, they're probably going to butt heads, particularly in the tough guy role, because David and Strength are both very stubborn, and they would both want to be the one to deliver the killing blow. So they would be arguing with one another about battle tactics or strategies, or who's going to fight the big bad, who gets to take the final shot. It's Empress, obviously, but the other 2 can pretend like it could be them. Okay, moving on, back on track. It was very cool that we got a clearer visual of what happens when Empress absorbs material for her coil gun, was it called? Or was it coil cannon? I think it was coil gun. Anyway, she actually absorbs that material, like it's gone from the world and stored in her arm, I guess. Like, it gets converted to something. Dust, perhaps? Whatever it is, we now know that she can store it. And I think that there would be a limit to how much she can store, but it's handy because it means that she has to think ahead. Learning a little bit about that, and Monica knowing about that, makes me think that she had seen Empress in action before. So seen her absorb a bunch of material, summon the gun, fire it, rinse and repeat. It's very possible that she can just keep summoning the coil gun if there's enough junk around for her to convert into it. And that's a cool concept, because what if she's out in the middle of a desert where there were no buildings and there's just nothing? She's left with her handgun and her like hand-to-hand combat. It could be fun. Kind of hope that happens, because then we have to see her do problem solving. I'm probably the only person in the world that gets excited about that, but it's good emotional tension and it builds character. Having Monica do that little bit of teaching about the gun, I definitely think that she had seen Empress in action before. She's knowledgeable about the Hemiteos units and could be a good teacher for Empress. There's a thought, because if Monica has seen this before and has maybe researched the units, possibly before everything went to shit, she read up. She was like, okay, I need to know more about this. She does a bunch of research and she learns how Empress was built, or how her weapons work, or just something about the 3 units that can help her to teach Empress how to reuse all her skills. Because it's clear that her fighting skills have remained, but that's purely reactionary. We only see her fight when she is attacked. And that's very cool. That's a great character trait. So that paves the way for her not knowing how to do anything that isn't reactionary. So when she's trying to save Mia and Norito in episode 1, her reaction is to reach out to them, and that's how her dust stuff, the blue shit, activates. And she goes, oh, hey, that's a thing I can do. That's a thing I can do. And then she goes and does it. She learned through reacting. Fantastic. Now we have Monica, who is going to be sort of the expositional teacher for the audience as to why Empress works the way she does. I kind of don't think that's necessary though. They could actually just skip the whole, this is how you were made and this is how your gun works. No, just let her use it. Show us how the gun works. That's very important. This story continues to break show don't tell. So do not tell us how the gun works. Just let her use it. Let us learn through her. Anyway, I think the black trike swearing was very fun. I really like the voice for the bike. It's so detached from everything else in the story and it works well. It's kind of a point of humor, which I think works. There's so much gloom and doom in this story, so having the bike be the way it is nice. It's a nice break from everything else. There were more stock explosion gifts. I'm not gonna linger on that point. As I mentioned, I do like that they're not afraid to hurt Empress. Like, she doesn't have as much plot armor as I would have expected out of that kind of character. I think it's weird though that for a story that is so gritty and so willing to show us violence, that Empress doesn't bleed. I think it would be better if she did. Like, there's probably a reason that she doesn't, like, oh no, we took all the blood out of her body so that she can be stronger. Like, okay, we've seen her be shot in episode 1. She was shot in episode 1 and didn't have any scratches or scars. Like, even just doing some cross-hatching to show, oh, she's been hit, like, in the leg. And here, she has a truck thrown at her and she's fine. Just scratch them up a little bit, you know? Give me that flavor. I mentioned before, I do want to see these characters get tossed around like rag dolls, but if you're not going to add like actual battle damage to them, it's hard to tell that any of this is actually impacting them. Like, okay, you have a truck thrown at you. That's kind of a big deal, and to get up as if nothing had happened, like not even dirt on you, it's just visually uninteresting because it makes it look like the characters aren't actually being hurt or impacted by the fight that's happening to them. I'd just like to see a little bit more, like, visually from the fight scenes in terms of scars or bleeding or just dirt and muck on them. Just something. Strength, my beloved. I think that was an incredible emotional moment of Strength protecting Empress, and that little bit that we got of Strength being like, why do I hate her? Like, we know why you hate her. She probably abandoned you, but Strength doesn't know that. She hasn't worked that out yet. And that's great. When you have something that the audience knows that the characters don't, you can lead into a lot of really interesting narrative stuff. If it's played wrong, it's incredibly frustrating because you're sitting there going like, the big bad is right around the corner and has been this whole time, but the characters don't know and it's just frustrating to see it. So It's kind of the same in thrillers, right? Like, the killer's outside the house, but the victim doesn't know it yet. Like, okay, if you drag that out long enough, it just gets boring, it loses tension. So I think in this kind of situation with Strength, if they draw out her trying to work out her emotional stuff, we're gonna get bored of it. Like, she needs to work it out, and then we can move on to the next emotional gripe. Because Strength seems like the kind of character that would have a lot of them. I'm wondering, is the black trike the only bike that talks? Because I would have liked it more if all of their bikes spoke, but I don't know. Is the black trike the only one that does because it's Empresses? Or, like, what's the deal there? What's going on there? I guess we'll find out. We got more exposition. I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember this one. I actually watched this yesterday morning and then didn't have time to record, so I don't remember this exposition dump. I'm just going to skip it. I think learning that the units were human is cool. That means they still have human weaknesses. And I think that's what we're seeing with Strength, in her struggling with her emotions, not working out why she still hates Empress. And that can lead into a hell of a lot of narrative drama, which I'm looking forward to, and I hope they do something very cool with it. Knowing that the units have human weaknesses, we are definitely seeing that with Strength in her inability to process her own emotions, and it's a little bit hard to tell what's happening with Empress simply because her whole focus is that she doesn't remember. I still don't like amnesia plots, and learning that Empress had been active, it kind of, you know, I think it would have been more interesting if she hadn't been active at all, and this was the first time that she'd actually seen the world. The reason she didn't remember anything is because she wasn't awake for it. But no, she's been out there before, and yes, that causes more emotional drama, but, you know, like, we're gonna get an exposition dump on what happened and why she left. Like, who did it? Was it her? Was it someone else? There's probably going to be an endgame twist of like, oh, Empress put herself in cryogenic sleep for some reason. Who knows? Because what's going to happen? Strength and Deadmaster know who Empress was before she lost her memory, and my guess is that she is going to be a completely different person now. So what I'm imagining is Empress was built as their leader, okay. She was given the instinct to help humans, okay, but she was aggressive about it. She would see the enemy and attack relentlessly without thinking, maybe. But now she's more compassionate. She's been exposed to different kinds of people in different ways, and rather than seeing them as something I need to protect, she sees them as something that she needs to help. And that is a massive difference, because if Empress's only instinct was to protect, she would do that, she would get them to safety, and she would leave. No. The difference here is that she wants to help them, so she is going to take them to places where they can get supplies. She's going to make sure they get home safely. It adds more to her list of jobs, which will frustrate characters like David, like Strength, probably like Dead as well, but who knows where she is at this point. So that's all I've got for episode 2. I did like it. You know, aside from the endless exposition, which I'm hoping ends here. I think it would be weird to have more exposition after this point, but once we're done with the exposition, we can go just straight into all the action, and I'm enjoying the action. I think it's very good. It's dramatic, which is awesome. It's not just like some stock fighting, like no, straight through a truck. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I'll see you all next week.